Rest assured, the monarch Xiaoyou will not emerge easily, and besides, Qianjue hasn't married this Miss Jiang yet, so I still have chance. Zhao Tianxi was full of confidence. He snapped open his folding fan and struck a pose he thought was very handsome, glancing at the three of them from the corner of his eye, seemingly waiting for their praise. But after waiting for a long time, no one spoke, and he couldn't help but feel angry. "What are you doing? Could it be that I—" Before Zhao Tianxi could finish his sentence, he looked in the direction the three were staring, only to discover a person standing at the end of the alley. That person was dressed in black with a black cloth covering their face, revealing only a pair of eyes. Their figure was slender, standing with hands behind their back, blocking the middle of the alley like a wall. Zhao Tianxi frowned, feeling a bit uneasy, but his expression remained arrogant. "Who are you? Get out of my way immediately." The masked person did not move. "I told you to move. Didn't you hear me?" Zhao Tianxi pointed with his folding fan. "Do you know who I am?" The masked person still didn't move, but their eyes narrowed slightly, and a trace of amusement flashed in them. Zhao Tianxi's heart skipped a beat, and he subconsciously took half a step back. But he quickly steadied himself. His father was Lord Tai Li, a favored minister of the imperial lord. In this imperial city, who would dare touch him? "My father is Zhao Qianjue." He puffed out his chest, raising his voice. "If you dare touch me, my father won't let you off. When he reports you to the imperial lord, you will have nowhere to stand in the entire Divine Dynasty." The three lackeys also came to their senses and clamored one after another. "That's right, Lord Tai Li, the imperial lord's favored minister. If you know what's good for you, move aside, or we'll make you regret it. Do you know what place this is? This is the imperial city, right under the emperor's feet." The masked person finally moved. He raised his hand and unhurriedly rolled up his sleeves, revealing a pair of fair, slender hands. Then he spoke, his voice lowered and carrying a deliberate hoarseness. "Zhao Qianjue." He scoffed. "A piece of trash." Zhao Tianxi's face instantly turned ashen. "What did you say?" "I said." The masked person walked forward slowly, every step unhurried, yet carrying a suffocating sense of oppression. "Your father, Zhao Qianjue, is just a piece of trash. He has no strength, and all he knows how to do is run his mouth all day." His eyes curved, the arc of a smile, but that smile was filled with undisguised mockery. "I don't know where you get the sense of superiority to mock others." He walked up to Zhao Tianxi and looked down at him. 20-something years of bone age, and only at the Dharma phase realm. How do you have a nerve? Wu Haoiwei is the son of a heavenly king, with a bone age similar to yours, and his cultivation has already reached the divine lord realm. Would he be as arrogant and domineering as you? Upon hearing this, Zhao Tianxi's pupils contracted sharply. It wasn't because of the other person's words, but because of that pressure, that tangible pressure radiating from the masked person. This was not something the Dharma phase realm or heavenly human realm could possess. Not even the spirit transformation or divine lord realms had such terrifying pressure. That was the divine king realm. Zhao Tianxi's legs began to tremble. His three lackeys collapsed to the ground, their faces pale, lips trembling, unable to speak. Who exactly are you?" Zhao Tianxi's voice was trembling. The masked person did not answer. He simply raised his hand, formed a fist, and waved it in front of Zhao Tianxi. "Guess what your face will look like after this punch." Zhao Tianxi's pupils reflected that fist and reflected the undisguised, almost perverted pleasure in the masked person's eyes. He finally understood. This person was doing it on purpose. He was waiting here on purpose, listening to him finish those words on purpose, watching him go from arrogant to terrified on purpose, all for this moment. You bam! The fist landed. Not one punch, but many. The masked person's fists fell like raindrops, each punch precisely avoiding vital points, yet causing bone-deep pain. "Ah, no, spare me, Hito." Zhao Tianxi's screams echoed in the alley, but the alley was too deep and no one outside could hear. The three lackeys wanted to run, but the masked person shot a glance at them, and that divine king realm pressure pinned them down, unable to move. Don't be in a rush. The masked person's voice was still hoarse, carrying a hair-raising pleasure. One by one, his eyes curved into crescents. The smile couldn't be clearly seen behind the mask, but the light in those eyes was like that of a child who had been stifled for too long and finally found an outlet. But to Zhao Tianxi, he was not a child at this moment, but a demon. A quarter of an hour later, for people lay scattered in the alley. Zhao Tianxi's face was swollen like a pig's head, his treasure blue brocade robe stripped completely off, leaving only a pair of underpants. His 3 lackeys were even more miserable. Even their underpants had been stripped, and they curled up naked in the corner like 4 plucked chickens. The masked person stood at the alley entrance, looking at his masterpiece, and nodded with satisfaction. Then he walked back, crouched down, and patted Zhao Tianxi's swollen face. Remember, his voice was still hoarse, but carried an indescribable sense of relief. Next time you run your mouth, it won't just be clothes getting stripped. Zhao Tianxi's mouth was too swollen to speak, and he could only make woo-woo sounds, his eyes filled with fear and resentment. The masked person stood up and turned to walk out of the alley. After walking a few steps, he looked back, his crescent-curved eyes filled with the triumph of a child whose prank had succeeded. The masked person disappeared at the alley entrance, leaving 4 naked figures shivering in the cold alley. By the side of the imperial city street, when Qianjue returned to Jiang Lingshian's side, his whole person felt lighter. It wasn't that his weight had decreased, but his mood had. That feeling of resentment held in for years being released all at once was like being constipated for 3 days and finally finding relief. Every pore on his body was cheering. "Where did you go?" Jiang Lingshian tilted her head to look at him, her amber eyes filled with a trace of curiosity. "Oh, I went to relieve myself," Qianjue said without changing his expression. "Relieve yourself?" Jiang Lingshian thought for a moment. "What does that mean?" "It means to go and resolve a personal matter." "Personal matter?" Jiang Lingshian was even more confused. "What kind of matter do you have on you?" Qianjue was speechless for a moment. He felt that explaining this to someone who had been cultivating for years was useless, as she wouldn't understand at all. Therefore, he didn't intend to explain further on this topic. "Let's go back to the palace." "Not eating anymore?" "Not eating. We'll come again another day." Jiang Lingshian nodded and didn't pursue the question. The two walked side by side on the road back to the palace, the setting sun stretching their shadows long and thin. Qianjue's steps were light, as if walking on clouds, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly on their own, and his eyes held an undisguisable sense of relief. He thought of Zhao Tianxi's face swollen like a pig's head, remembered his eyes filled with fear, and recalled his naked body curled up in the corner. He almost couldn't help but laugh out loud. "What are you laughing at?" Jiang Lingshian asked. "Nothing." Qianjue quickly reined in his smile. "I just thought of some happy things." "What happy things?" Qianjue thought for a moment and said seriously, "It's just beating up someone who bullied me in the past." Jiang Lingshian blinked. "You beat someone up?" "No," Qianjue said without changing his expression. "I was just thinking about it." "Oh." Jiang Lingshian nodded, then said seriously, "If anyone bullies you, tell me, and I will help you beat them up." Qianjue felt a warmth in his heart, but his expression remained calm. "Okay." Ding detected concern from partner for host, volunteering to beat someone up for the host. Congratulations to the host for obtaining plus 50 soft rice points. Current soft rice points, 15,150 points. Qianjue felt even happier, and he unconsciously started humming a little tune. "Today is a good day. Everything I wish for can come true." The night was deep. Qianjue lay on the bed, tossing and turning, unable to suppress the smile on his lips. It wasn't because he had beaten up Zhao Tianxi, though that was indeed very satisfying. It was because of the number on the system panel. Soft rice points. 15,150 points. He stared at this number for a long time. The more he looked, the more he felt happy. "System," he asked in his heart. for the first 10 consecutive draw is an imperial grade item truly guaranteed. Ding. Yes. For the first 10 consecutive draw, you are guaranteed to obtain one imperial grade reward. Then, is it possible to get multiple imperial grade items? The lottery is completely random, but the probability is extremely low, less than 1 in 1,000. Qianjue licked his lips. Less than 1 in 1,000? Doesn't that mean basically impossible? But his luck was good today. He had beaten up Zhao Tianxi, vented his anger, and felt refreshed. Even the air felt sweet. In this state, could his luck be bad? He gritted his teeth. Draw. Give his prince a 10 consecutive draw to try it out. Ding. The host has consumed 10,000 soft rice points to start a 10 consecutive draw. Current remaining soft rice points, 5,150 points drawing. On the system panel, a golden roulette wheel began to spin. Qianjue held his breath, his eyes fixed tightly on the pointer on the roulette wheel. Spirit grade, profound grade, god grade, imperial grade, epic. The colors of the 5 grades flashed alternately on the roulette wheel, the lights dazzling him. The pointer spun slower and slower, slower and slower. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining Spirit Grade Pill, Hui Yuan Pill, times 3. The corner of Qianjue mouth twitched. A bad start? Congratulations to the host for obtaining Profound Grade Cultivation Method, Qingfeng Sword Art. 2 bad draws in a row. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Top Grade Spirit Stones times 103 bad draws in a row. Qianjue's heart began to sink. What happened to being lucky? What happened to the overflowing luck? What happened to having good luck after beating someone up? I am just deceiving myself. Congratulations to the host for obtaining God Grade Top Tier Magical Artifact, Void Breaking Sword. Qianjue eyes lit up slightly. God Grade Top Tier? That means it's a top tier God Grade artifact. Although it wasn't Imperial Grade, it was already quite good. After all, on the Qianjue continent, top tier God Grade artifacts were the weapons used by heavenly venerate powerhouses. And this Void Breaking Sword, it sounds very powerful just by the name. Mainland Weapon Grade Classification, Spirit Artifact, Profound Artifact, God Artifact, Imperial Artifact, Chaos Artifact. Each grade is divided into low grade, mid grade, high grade, top grade. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Spirit Grade Pill, Spirit Gathering Pill times 5. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Profound Grade Martial Skill, Star Shattering Fist Pill Grade Classification. Treasure Pill, Spirit Pill, Profound Pill, God Pill, Heaven Pill, Imperial Pill. Each grade is divided into low grade, mid grade, high grade, top grade. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Top Tier God Grade Defensive Magical Treasure, Heavenly Kirin War Armor, another top tier God Grade item. Qianjue's heart began to warm up. This God Grade armor, plus the previous Void Breaking Sword, just these 2 items alone, the 10,000 soft rice points were not wasted. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Profound Grade Pill, Pei Yuan Pill times 2, that's the 8th one, 2 draws left. Qianjue's fingers involuntarily gripped the bedsheet. Guaranteed Imperial Grade. Among the remaining 2, at least 1 must be Imperial Grade. What could it be? A cultivation method? A magical artifact? A pill? Or ding? Congratulations to the host for obtaining Imperial Grade. Qianjue's breathing stopped. Top tier Imperial Grade. Hunyuan Nirvana Pill. Qianjue eyes widened instantly. Hunyuan Nirvana Pill. His mouth opened, unable to close. Imperial Grade. It really is Imperial Grade. His fingers were trembling, his lips were quivering, his mind was blank, with only 3 words echoing. I'm rich. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Imperial Grade. Qianjue's brain crashed again. Wait, there's more? Wasn't a guarantee of 1 Imperial Grade item? How is there more? Mid-grade Imperial Grade, Tai Wong Sword. The sword body was pitch black, and dark golden patterns flowed along the blade, like a sleeping true dragon. A black gemstone the size of a pigeon egg was embedded in the hilt, and a desolate aura faintly flowed within the gem. Qianjue looked at the phantom of the sword, his mouth opening even wider. 2 imperial-grade items. The system said it guaranteed 1, but it gave 2. The corners of his mouth began to rise, then rise further, finally stretching to his ears, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. As expected, he slapped his thigh, his voice trembling. Once things go smoothly, everything one does will be satisfactory. He pointed at the system panel, laughing like a 200-pound child. System, you said there was a guarantee of 1 imperial-grade item, but this prince got 2. 2. Are you surprised? Are you shocked? The system was silent for a moment. Detected excessive emotional fluctuations from the host, suggesting the host take a deep breath and remain calm. I can't calm down. Qianjue sat up from the bed, hugging the quilt and rolling around. 2 imperial-grade items. 2. In this life, no, in 2 lifetimes, I've never been this lucky. Host, calm down. Calm down, what calm down? This prince is a lucky god right now. Do you understand what a lucky god is? It's that kind of existence that gets a hit in 1 shot, gets double yellows in a 10 draw, making people envious, jealous, and hateful. Host, what was your luckiest time drawing cards before? Qianjue's smile froze for a moment. 10 consecutive draw guarantee, the worst one. Then the host's current mindset belongs to a nouveau riche mentality. Suggests the host restrain themselves to avoid sorrow from excessive joy. Sorrow from excessive joy. Qianjue snorted. This prince's luck is exploding right now. What's sorrow? What's sorrow? He hugged the quilt and rolled again, rolling to the edge of the bed and almost falling off, then rolled back. So comfortable. His voice echoed within Qianjue Palace, startling the birds resting on the trees outside the window. Bai Yao and Bei Ling heard the commotion outside the door and looked at each other. His Highness is... What's wrong with him? I don't know, should we go in and check? Forget it. His Highness has been acting strange lately. Don't disturb him. The 2 maids looked at each other and quietly retreated. Inside the sleeping chamber, Qianjue finally calmed down a bit. He sat cross-legged on the bed, looking at the reward list on the system panel, counting them one by one. Spirit grade. Huiyuan pill times 3 for healing injuries, better than nothing. Spirit stones times 100 pocket money. Spirit gathering pill times 5 for cultivation, better than nothing, profound grade. Qingfeng sword art cultivation method can be given to subordinates to practice. Star-shattering fist, martial skill, can be given to subordinates to practice. Peiyuan pill times 2 for consolidating the foundation, better than nothing, god grade. Void-breaking sword, magical artifact, the sword. Body is transparent like crystal, with a galaxy flowing inside the sword. Heavenly Kirin war armor, defensive magical treasure, can transform into daily robes, imperial grade. Hunyuan nirvana pill, after consumption, it can reshape the soul, nirvana the flesh, regrow flesh on withered bones, reconnect severed limbs. Even if the flesh is destroyed and only a remnant soul remains, one can still nirvana and be reborn, returning to the peak state. Tai Huang sword, imperial grade divine sword. Pitch black body, dark golden patterns on the blade. He stared at those 2 imperial grade rewards, unable to suppress the smile on his lips. System, introduce the uses of the Tai Huang sword and the void-breaking sword. Void-breaking sword, god-level magical artifact, can change form according to the owner's will, suitable for daily use. Tai Huang sword, emperor-level divine sword. The blade is sealed with the soul of a great emperor realm, Tai Huang, ancient dragon. When unsheathed, it can summon a phantom of a true dragon, with power sufficient to shatter the void. Qianjue's eyes brightened again. True dragon soul? Yes. The sword blank was forged from the dragon bone of a great emperor realm, ancient dragon, and the soul of that true dragon is sealed within the sword. The higher the user's cultivation, the greater the power of the true dragon soul. Then, since I am currently at the 9th stage of the Divine King realm, can I use it? Yes, but you cannot unleash its full power. It is recommended that the host reaches at least the Heavenly Venerate realm before fully activating the Tai Huang sword. Qianjue nodded and examined the phantom of the Tai Huang sword over and over again. The pitch-black sword body, dark golden patterns, and a black gemstone the size of a pigeon egg. Low-key, luxurious, and refined. It fit his aesthetic. He looked at the Hunyuan Nirvana pill again. Does this pill have any restrictions? No restrictions. Whether it is the Qi condensation realm or the Emperor realm, taking this pill can restore even the most severe injuries to their original state. Good. This is a life-saving pill. Qianjue put away the rewards one by one and laid back down on the bed. Outside the window, the moonlight was like water. A smile still hung on the corners of his lips. 2 Emperor-level items, 2 God-level items, plus a pile of odds and ends. Only spent 10,000 soft rice points. A huge profit. He closed his eyes, and the image of Zhao Tianxi's face, swollen like a pig's head, appeared in his mind, along with the 2 Emperor-level rewards on the system panel. The curve of his lips widened a bit more. Today is a good day. Just as Qianjue was humming a little tune and planning to hypnotize himself, ding, the system notification sound suddenly rang out. Friendly reminder. The host currently has 5,150 soft rice points remaining. Do you wish to continue the lucky draw? Qianjue thought for a moment and shook his head. No more draws. I'll save them for backup. Is the host sure you don't want to draw? Your luck is quite good today. Why not try again? Do you take me for a drooling fool? Qianjue turned over and wrapped himself tightly in the quilt. One must learn to be content. I can't exhaust all my extraordinary luck in one day. I must save it to draw 2 more Emperor-level items next time. The host's understanding of probability might be slightly off. What deviation? My luck is good today, so whatever I say is right. The system decided not to argue with the host. Just as Qianjue was tossing and turning, about to fall asleep. Your Highness. Bai Yao's voice came from outside the door, carrying a hint of urgency. The Imperial Lord has issued a decree for you to proceed to Taihu Hall immediately. Qianjue sat up abruptly. Father Emperor is summoning me? Now, a thought flashed through his mind. The matter with Zhao Tianxi. It couldn't have been exposed so quickly. Could it? He glanced out the window. The night was as dark as ink. The moon was obscured by dark clouds, and not even a few stars could be seen. Understood. He got up, and Bai Yao and Bei Ling came in to help him change. The 2 maids moved much faster than usual, clearly aware that a late-night summons from the Imperial Lord was no ordinary matter. A moment later, Qianjue had changed into a black brocade robe, simply tied his hair, and hurried to Taihu Hall. Along the way, his mind raced. Zhao Tianxi had been beaten black and blue by him, his clothes stripped off. He definitely wouldn't be able to swallow this insult. Zhao Qianjue, that old thing, is the most protective of his own. If he knew his son had been beaten, he would certainly make a scene before Father Emperor. But he had covered his face and hidden his cultivation. No one should be able to recognize him, unless Zhao Tianxi recognized his physique. Qianjue recalled his movements when beating the person. He had deliberately changed his posture, lowered his voice, and even changed his walking gait. He shouldn't be recognizable, but he still felt a bit uneasy. Inside Taihu Hall, the lights were bright. Qianjue sat on the imperial throne, not wearing his dragon robe, but only a black casual outfit, his long hair loose. He looked less majestic than during the day, but more casual. However, his gaze remained sharp, like an unsheathed sword. Qianjue stepped into the hall and bowed. Your son greets Father Emperor. Rise. Qianjue's voice was imposing without anger. Come and sit. Qianjue looked up and glanced at Father Emperor's side. There was no empress, no ministers, only Father Emperor alone. His heart settled slightly, and he walked forward and sat on the chair below Qianjue. Qianjue looked him over, his gaze carrying a hint of scrutiny. Qianjue remained calm on the surface, but his heart was pounding. Today, Qianjue began. You took Miss Jiang out of the palace? Qianjue nodded. Yes. Your son promised to take her to taste the delicacies of the imperial city. How did it feel? What feeling? Qianjue's lips curved slightly upward, the smile carrying a hint of teasing. The feeling of spending time with Miss Jiang. Qianjue was stunned for a moment, then realized Father Emperor is asking about his romantic progress. It was, all right, he said somewhat unnaturally. All right, Qianjue raised an eyebrow. Is it good or not good? Good, Qianjue answered honestly. In what way is it good? Qianjue thought for a moment. She is very simple, very kind, and can eat a lot. Can eat a lot? Qianjue was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. Eating a lot is good. Eating a lot is a blessing. Qianjue. He always felt that Father Emperor was a bit strange today. Qianjue laughed enough, then put away his smile and said seriously, Qianjue, I summoned you here today not just to ask about you and Miss Jiang. Qianjue's heart tightened. He knew that whenever his Father Emperor referred to himself as a father, it definitely meant nothing good. He raised his eyes slightly and looked at Qianjue. I wonder what other business Father Emperor has. Qianjue stood up, walked in the hall with his hands behind his back, and turned his back to him. The influence of the aristocratic clans is deeply rooted in the 4 great imperial dynasties under the Divine Dynasty. You should have heard of this. Qianjue nodded without speaking, and Qianjue let out a long sigh. These clans, ever since they separated from the Divine Dynasty, have been secretly eroding the foundation of the Divine Dynasty. Among the 4 imperial dynasties, the Qianjue Imperial Dynasty, the Great Xia Imperial Dynasty, the Great Shang Imperial Dynasty, and the Great Zhou Imperial Dynasty. The figures of these clans can be found in the court of every dynasty, including the Divine Dynasty. He turned around, his gaze landing on Qianjue. If the human race is to remain stable, these clan forces must be eradicated. Qianjue pupils contracted slightly. Father Emperor is going to take action against the clans? But what is the use of telling him this? While Qianjue was guessing his Father Emperor's intentions, Qianjue walked back to the imperial throne, sat down, and continued speaking. But I cannot take action personally. If I were to take action, those clans would unite, and that would lead to a great war. The human race cannot afford internal attrition. He paused, his gaze deep. Therefore, I need someone I can trust to handle this matter for me. Qianjue's heart rate accelerated. He knew who Father Emperor was talking about. Qianjue, Qianjue called out, then said solemnly, I want you to go to the Qianjue Imperial Dynasty. I don't require you to eradicate all the clans. I only hope that you can stir up the situation in the Imperial Dynasty. Qianjue took a deep breath. As expected, Father Emperor, my cultivation. I know, Qianjue interrupted him. Your cultivation is not high, but I will not let you go alone. He held up 2 fingers. I will assign 2 experts in the heavenly venerate realm to you. Then, he held up another finger, plus the 50,000 troops of the Luqian army commanded by Wu Haoiwei. Qianjue's eyes widened slightly. 50,000 Luqian army troops. Although commanded by Wu Haoiwei, his father, Heavenly King Wuji, had equipped this army with god-level gear, giving them combat power comparable to 100,000 ordinary soldiers. As for how to proceed, Qianjue looked at him. That is up to you to decide. Qianjue remained silent on the surface, but his heart was ecstatic. Going to the Qianjue Imperial Dynasty, that meant leaving the imperial palace, leaving behind the ministers who hovered around him every day and the rules that bound him. He could take out any items rewarded by the system at will, use the system to improve his cultivation, and enjoy being a kept man without any worries. But now, he could not show his happiness, because a filial son should not be eager to leave his parents. Father Emperor, he spoke up, his voice tinged with a hint of reluctance. Your son does not want to leave you and Mother Empress. Qianjue raised an eyebrow. Oh, I have grown up by your and Mother Empress's side since I was young and have never left the imperial palace. The journey to the Qianjue Imperial Dynasty is long, and I do not know how long it will take. He lowered his head, his voice muffled. I cannot bear to leave. Qianjue looked at him, a flicker of complex emotion flashing in his eyes. This brat, when did he become so eloquent? Cannot bear to leave? He repeated, I cannot bear to leave. Qianjue looked up, his eyes even shimmering with a faint watery glint, fake of course. Qingyan stared at him for 3 breaths. Then he laughed. In that smile, there was gratification, helplessness, and a hint of amusement. Qianjue. He leaned back against the imperial throne, his tone becoming casual. Tell me the truth. Are you asking for benefits? Qianjue act froze. Your son. Stop pretending. Qingyan waved his hand. I am your father. Do you think I cannot see through your little schemes? Qianjue fell silent. Then he smiled. That smile carried a hint of composure after being exposed, and a trace of fawning. Father Emperor is wise. Less flattery. Qingyan glared at him, but there was no anger in his eyes. Speak, what do you want? Qianjue rubbed his hands together, smiling like a fox that had stolen a chicken. Father Emperor, you also know that my cultivation is low. If I go to a place like the Qianjue imperial dynasty and encounter danger, I already said I would assign 2 heavenly venerates to you. Heavenly venerates are powerful, but what if I encounter a half-emperor? How could you encounter a half-emperor so easily? Besides, don't you have that 9 other Kirin King by your side? But what if there is more than one? Qingyan took a deep breath, suppressing the urge to hit someone. He knew that if he brought up Jiang Lingshan, his son would definitely add more variables. So he said in a deep voice, state your demands. As long as you can get the job done, I will grant anything. Your son thinks that if I have a god-level technique to protect myself, plus some god-level magic treasures, and some cultivation resources, spirit stones, spirit crystals, purple crystals, and alike, my safety will be more guaranteed. Diqing Tian Ais Narod. A god-level technique? Yes. God-level magic treasures? Yes. Spirit stones, spirit crystals, purple crystals? Yes. Qingyan looked at him without speaking for a long time. Qianjue felt a bit guilty under his gaze, but still maintained that I am doing this all for safety expression. After a long while, Qingyan sighed. You have changed. Qianjue's heart tightened. Father Emperor, the old you would not ask me for things. Qingyan's tone carried a hint of emotion. Back then, although you were pretending, you were obedient, sensible, and never made demands. Qianjue fell silent. Of course he wouldn't make demands, because he was acting back then. But I prefer the current you. Qingyan's lips curled up slightly. Knowing how to bargain with me, knowing how to play the victim to get benefits. This is what a young person should be like. He stood up from the imperial throne, walked over to Qianjue, and patted his shoulder. Fine, I will give them to you. Qianjue's eyes lit up. A god-level technique, Taishu finger. When your cultivation is sufficient, I will teach you personally. Some god-level magic treasures. There are quite a few in my treasure vault. Go pick them yourself tomorrow. As for cultivation resources, spirit stones, spirit crystals, and purple crystals, I will have the treasury Heavenly Lord, Qian Wuliang, allocate them to you. Upon hearing this, Qianjue almost couldn't help but laugh out loud. He did not expect Father Emperor would actually agree. Thus, he took a deep breath, suppressing the ecstasy in his heart, and bowed. Your son thanks Father Emperor. Don't be in such a hurry to thank me. Qingyan waved his hand. I am giving you these things, not for you to go and enjoy yourself. You must handle the matters of the Qianjue imperial dynasty well. Your son understands. Also, Qingyan paused, his gaze becoming profound. You cannot slack off regarding Jiang Lingshan. Qianjue was stunned. Huh? What huh? What? Qingyan glared at him. I told you to bring her here precisely so you could marry into an alliance with her. If you mess this up, I will not spare you. Qianjue. Remember, Qingyan held up a finger. Feelings need to be cultivated. Taking her out to eat and drink is correct, but that alone is not enough to pursue someone. You need to talk to her more, understand her more, but you must never let her see through you. Otherwise, you will have no attraction in front of her. Once that happens, you will only be the one being manipulated or even You will never be able to obtain her. Upon hearing this, Qianjue was suddenly stunned. Brilliant! He never expected that his father emperor was actually a love guru. He looked at Di Qingdian with a strange expression. Father emperor, could it be that this is how you tricked Mother Empress into your hands back then? Di Qingdian glared at him. Why is a child asking about these things? He adjusted his robes and continued. And the most important point, Miss Jiang is inexperienced in the world. You must take it slow and not scare her. Your son understands, then your son will take his leave. As he spoke, Di Qianjue turned to leave. Right. Di Qingdian's voice came from behind, unhurried, yet it made Di Qianjue's footsteps pause. That brat Zhao Tianxi. Was it you who beat him? Di Qianjue art jumped violently. Here it comes. He turned around, his face showing the perfect amount of confusion. Zhao Tianxi? What happened to him? Di Qingdian leaned back on the imperial throne, his gaze calm as he looked at him, revealing neither joy nor anger. That old geezer Zhao Qianjue spent all night crying and complaining to me. He said his son was cornered in a small alley, beaten until his face was bruised and swollen, and even had his clothes stripped off. The corners of Di Qianjue's mouth twitched slightly. He wanted to laugh, but he couldn't. There's such a thing? He put on a shocked expression. Who did it? They have too much nerve. In the imperial city, right under the feet of the Son of Heaven, to dare commit violence and injure someone, it's simply lawless. Di Qingdian watched his performance, a trace of a smile flashing in his eyes, but his expression remained calm. Zhao Tianxi said the person was masked, so he couldn't see the face clearly. But he remembered the person's build, and it was very similar to yours. Di Qianjue's heart tightened, but his face remained composed. Father Emperor, this son has been with Miss Jiang all day today, so how would I have time to beat someone up? Besides, he paused, his tone carrying a hint of grievance. Besides, with my level of cultivation, how could I possibly be his opponent? He is in the Dharma phase realm now, after all. He emphasized the words Dharma phase realm heavily, his tone carrying a trace of self-mockery. Di Qingdian looked at him, his gaze lingering on him for a moment. Then his divine sense swept over. Di Qianjue felt the power of that divine sense, like an invisible tide, enveloping him from head to toe. Di Qianjue's body tensed slightly, but his face remained calm. System, I'm counting on you. Ding. Rest assured, host. With this system here, your currently displayed cultivation is only at the mid-stage of the Divine Sea realm. No one will be able to see through it. The divine sense lingered for 3 breaths, then retracted. Di Qingdian brows furrowed slightly. Mid-stage Divine Sea realm truly couldn't defeat the Dharma phase realm. But he always felt something was off. He looked into Di Qianjue's eyes. Those eyes were clear as crystal, carrying a hint of grievance, a hint of confusion, and a hint of innocence. Di Qingdian sighed inwardly. Perhaps he was overthinking it. All right, he waved his hand. You may go back. Di Qianjue breathed a sigh of relief and sighed, but on the surface he maintained that innocent expression. Father Emperor, about that Zhao Tianxi matter, I will handle it myself. Yes, this son will take his leave. Di Qianjue turned around and strode out of the Taihu Hall. The moment he stepped out of the hall doors, the corners of his mouth finally couldn't help but curl upward. He didn't look back, but his footsteps were as light as if he were walking on clouds. Inside the Taihu Hall, Di Qingdian sat alone on the imperial throne. He looked towards the direction of the hall doors, his gaze deep. This kid, he muttered to himself, the corners of his mouth slightly rising, is becoming more and more interesting. He recalled Di Qianjue's expression of grievance just now, those innocent eyes, that perfect touch of self-mockery. He acted too well. So well that even he almost believed it. Divine Sea Realm? He shook his head, a trace of a smile flashing in his eyes. Who was he trying to fool? He had lived for so many years. What hadn't he seen? Could a kid in the Divine Sea Realm really be that composed when faced with his divine sense probing? An ordinary divine sea realm cultivator would have already had weak knees from fear under his divine sense. But Qianjue did not. Not only did he not, but he also acted with him without changing his expression. This kid is hiding deep. Qianjue stood up, walked to the window with his hands behind his back, and looked at the night scenery outside. The moon poked its head out from behind the dark clouds, casting a silvery glow over the ground. However, he smiled, hiding deep is a good thing. He remembered how Qianjue had bargained with him earlier, feigning pity, asking for benefits, smiling like a fox that had stolen a chicken. That was what a young person should be like. Not the perfect imperial son from before who was obedient, sensible, and never made demands, but a son who could laugh, make trouble, and bargain with his father. Qianjue, he said softly, I am waiting to see just how far you can go. Outside the window, the moonlight was like water. Inside the Taihu Hall, the laughter of the imperial lord echoed softly. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the window lattice of the Qianjue palace, casting golden spots of light on the ground. Qianjue sat at the desk, holding a cup of tea in his hand, deliberating on how to bring it up. Because he had only just brought Xianxia back 2 days ago, and now he had to take her to the Qianjue imperial dynasty. He didn't know if she would be willing. Xianxia sat opposite him, her white clothes like snow, her long hair draped down, focusing intently on eating a plate of osmanthus cakes. Her manner of eating was very cute, taking small bites, her cheeks slightly puffed out, her eyelashes fluttering gently as she chewed, like a little hamster stealing food. Qianjue looked at her and suddenly felt a bit reluctant to speak. But he still said it. Miss Jiang, there is something I need to tell you. Xianxia looked up, her amber eyes looking at him. What is it? Father Emperor wants me to go on a long trip. Xianxia blinked. A long trip? Where to? The Qianjue imperial dynasty. There are some matters in the affiliated forces under the Divine Dynasty that need to be handled. Oh! Xianxia lowered her head and continued eating the osmanthus cakes. Qianjue waited for a moment, and seeing she had no reaction, he felt a bit puzzled. This girl, doesn't she want to ask how long? Doesn't she want to ask what for? He said tentatively. I might be gone for a very long time. Shortest a year or two, longest. Maybe even longer. Qianjue. What did her mean? Is she going with him or not? Just as Qianjue was wondering whether to ask directly, Xianxia put down the osmanthus cake in her hand. She looked up at Qianjue, and a layer of moisture suddenly welled up in her amber eyes. The moisture was very faint, so faint that it was almost invisible, but Qianjue saw it. Her lips pressed together slightly, the corners of her mouth curving downward in a small arc, and the expression on her face changed from calm to grievance. The kind of grievance only an abandoned little animal would have. You don't intend to take me. Her voice was soft, carrying a hint of trembling. Qianjue was stunned. He had never seen Xianxia show this expression before. She had always been like that, calm and indifferent, untainted by dust, as if everything in the world had nothing to do with her. Whether facing the siege of Darkblade assassins or the pressure of the 9 Nether Kirin king, her face always only had calmness. But now she was aggrieved, because she thought he wasn't taking her when he left. Who said I wasn't taking you? Qianjue hurriedly said, then lowered his head embarrassedly. I just felt that I had only just brought you back, and now I have to take you out, so I felt a bit embarrassed to bring it up. Hearing this, Xianxia eyes instantly lit up. The moisture was still there, but the grievance had vanished, replaced by a childlike anticipation. Really? Then, she tilted her head, her amber eyes full of curiosity. Does that imperial dynasty have good food too? Qianjue was stunned for a moment, then laughed. He really had to admire this girl's train of thought. She was still aggrieved just a moment ago, but as soon as she heard he was taking her, her first reaction wasn't, what are we going there for? But, is there food? Yes. Qianjue nodded with a smile. Whatever you want to eat, they have it. Zhang Lingshan nodded in satisfaction, picked up the osmanthus cake again, and continued eating. Seeing her like this, a warmth welled up in Qianjue's heart. This girl was as simple as a blank sheet of paper. Her joy, anger, sorrow, and happiness were all written on her face. She didn't hide, didn't disguise, and didn't beat around the bush. Getting along with such a person was effortless. After coordinating with Zhang Lingshan, Qianjue headed to his father emperor's treasury alone. The treasury was located beneath the Taihu Hall. Its entrance was a thick stone door carved with dense array patterns, emitting a faint golden light. Two old men stood guard. They radiated no aura whatsoever, looking just like ordinary old men. Upon seeing Qianjue, they bowed in salute before opening the stone door. The stone door slowly creaked open, revealing a flight of stone steps extending downwards. Night-luminescent pearls were embedded in the walls on both sides, their soft glow illuminating the path ahead. Qianjue walked down the steps for about the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, and suddenly, the view opened up before him. It was a massive underground space, 1,000 zhang square and 10 zhang high. The four walls were built with star-gold bricks, and the floor was paved with 10,000-year warm jade. The air was filled with rich spiritual energy. Taking a single breath made one feel refreshed and invigorated. Inside the treasury, rows of rosewood shells were neatly arranged, filled with all sorts of treasures, medicinal pills, artifacts, cultivation technique, jade slips, spirit stones, spirit crystals, purple crystals, heavenly crystals. It was a dazzling array that left one's eyes spinning. Qianjue took a deep breath, the corners of his mouth slowly curling upward. Father Emperor's treasury. It truly lives up to its reputation. He walked between the shelves with his hands behind his back, his gaze sweeping over each treasure as he calculated what he should take. He already possessed 2 god-grade artifacts. One was the defensive god-grade artifact he'd drawn from the system, the heavenly Kirin war armor. The other was the void-breaking sword. Coming to Father Emperor's treasury now was to complete his own god-tier equipment set. Something for speed. His gaze landed on a pair of silver-white boots. Cloud-stepping boots, a mid-grade god-tier artifact. Wearing them increases speed by 50% and allows for brief airwalking without consuming divine power. Good stuff. He picked up the cloud-stepping boots and placed them into his spatial ring. Something for attack. He picked up a short blade. Crimson Cloud Blade, a high-grade divine artifact, suitable for close-quarter surprise attacks. Although not as good as the void-breaking sword, it can serve as a backup. He placed it into the ring. Something for defense. He picked up a dark golden inner armor. Dragon Scale Armor, a high-grade god-tier artifact woven from true dragon scales. It can withstand a full-force blow from a heavenly venerate realm expert. Although I already have the heavenly Kirin war armor, having an extra piece for protection is never bad. He placed it into the ring once more. Something for control. He picked up a milky white bracelet covered in golden patterns. Prisoner Bracelet, a top-grade god-tier artifact. It can launch mental attacks and plant a slave mark to turn someone into one's battle servant. It can control cultivators up to 1 realm higher than the user. Holy crap, there's such a good item here. Must take it. Without hesitation, Qianjue placed the prisoner bracelet into his ring. A spatial ring. He saw a spatial ring and then looked at the one on his own hand, instantly feeling that the one he was wearing was no longer appealing. This one of Father Emperor's. It seems to exceed God tier, but hasn't reached Emperor tier. It must be a half-Emperor grade spatial ring, and the space inside is like a small world. No, I must swap it. He quickly performed a simple blood bond recognition, emptied the contents of the spatial ring on his hand, switched to this half-Emperor grade one, and then stuffed his old ring inside it as well. When he walked to the spirit stone section and saw the rows of neatly stacked spirit stones, his eyes gleamed, and he let out a devious laugh. Father Emperor told me to come take god-tier artifacts, so can I take some of these crystals too? With a wave of his hand, he collected 10 million each of all the top-grade spirit stones, top-grade spirit crystals, and top-grade purple crystals on the shelves. Huh, there are heavenly crystals too. He looked at the few crystals in the corner emitting seven-colored light, his eyes brightening even further. Heavenly crystals are rare items. They are scarce even in the entire Divine Dynasty. Take them. Let's take a few more. He gathered up over 1,000 heavenly crystals in one go, then clapped his hands in satisfaction. That's about enough. He turned to leave, but suddenly remembered something and turned back. Right, that fatty needs to go too. He accompanied me to Xianxia Island last time and protected me so loyally. I must bring him a thank you gift. He circled the treasury and found a god-tier defensive artifact suitable for Wu Howie Wei, a large golden silk soft armor. It could change size according to the wearer's physique, fitting his 200 caddy frame perfectly. This one is good. I'll give it to him. He put the golden silk soft armor away and then left the treasury, satisfied. After leaving the Heavenly Emperor's treasury, Qianjue went to the treasure pavilion. The treasure pavilion was the national treasury of the Divine Dynasty, managed by the treasure-collecting heavenly monarch, Qianjue. Qianjue lived up to his name. When it came to money, he was truly boundless. This didn't mean he had a lot of money, but rather that he was stingy. He would split a single spirit stone in half to spend it. When Qianjue stepped into the treasure pavilion, Qianjue was busy calculating accounts. He looked to be in his 40s, with a thin frame, wearing a gray cloth robe. He looked like an accountant, not a minister in charge of the national treasury. At this moment, his fingers were rapidly clicking on an abacus, producing a clattering sound. Treasure collecting heavenly monarch, the Qianjue spoke up. Qianjue looked up and, upon seeing Qianjue, immediately put on a smile. But that smile stiffened for a moment when he saw the half-emperor-grade spatial ring in Qianjue's hand. Ninth Imperial son, what is this? Oh, Father Emperor told me to come to you to get some spirit stones to spend. Qianjue handed over the Qingtian imperial decree. Qianjue took the decree and read it through. The smile on his face gradually faded, replaced by a look of physical pain. Spirit stones, spirit crystals, purple crystals, 10 million of each, top grade. His voice trembled. Your Highness, this is too much, isn't it? Is it? Qianjue asked with an innocent face. Father Emperor said he would let me pick them out from the treasury myself. He agreed to it. But Qianjue looked at the words on the decree, wanting to cry, but having no tears. Your Highness, this year's mining output and tax revenue haven't been deposited into the treasury yet. The treasure pavilion's current stock is running low. How about you take half for now? Hearing this, Qianjue thought to himself that he had already taken quite a lot from his father emperor's treasury, and adding half of what Qianjue mentioned, it would be enough for him to spend for many years. Fine, then I'll take half for now. You can give me the rest when I return in the future. Seeing him agree, Qianjue grit his teeth in agony and turned to instruct his subordinates to prepare. A moment later, piles of neatly stacked top-grade spirit stones, top-grade spirit crystals, and top-grade purple crystals were brought out, radiating light that illuminated the entire room. Qianjue waved his hand and collected them all into his spatial ring. Oh, right, and the heavenly crystals, he added. Qianjue's face twitched. Your Highness, heavenly crystals are extremely rare. Even when the Imperial Lord rewards the ministers, he only gives 1 or 2 pieces. Currently, there are less than 10,000 in the entire Divine Dynasty, and the Imperial Lord still needs them to reward meritorious officials in the future. How about we skip the heavenly crystals? Father Emperor said to let me take them. Qianjue looked at the decree, then at Qianjue's innocent face. He took a deep breath, retrieved a jade box from the deepest part of the cabinet, and opened it. Inside, 27 colored heavenly crystals were neatly arranged. Qianjue's eyes lit up, and he reached out to take them. Qianjue instinctively shielded the jade box. Your Highness, at most 10 pieces. 15 pieces. 12 pieces, no more than that. 13 pieces deal. Qianjue grit his teeth again, took 13 heavenly crystals from the jade box and handed them to Qianjue. His hands were trembling, his eyes full of reluctance, as if he weren't handing over heavenly crystals, but his own flesh and blood. Qianjue took the heavenly crystals, put them into his ring, and patted Qianjue on the shoulder. Treasure-collecting heavenly monarch, don't feel bad. I am doing this for the Divine Dynasty as well. Qianjue smiled bitterly. Your Highness is right. Qianjue turned and left. He walked a few steps, then turned back. Right, treasure-collecting heavenly monarch, if you feel pained, you can go to my father Emperor's treasury and ask for them back. Qianjue's face became even more bitter. Go ask the Imperial Lord? That wouldn't just be painful. That would be courting death. Afternoon, Qianjue returned to Qianjue Palace. Jiang Lingshan was sitting by the window, holding a teacup, looking at the scenery outside. At this moment, Wu Haoiwei had already arrived. His 200-caddy frame sat on a chair, making the chair creak and groan under his weight. When he saw Qianjue return, he immediately stood up, his round face full of smiles. Imperial son. His voice was booming, and the flesh on his body trembled. Qianjue nodded with a smile. You're here? Here, I'm here. Wu Haoiwei rubbed his hands together. His Majesty issued an edict last night, ordering me to lead the Luqian army to accompany you to the Qianjue imperial dynasty. I had the Luqian army split into dozens of small squads and set off overnight. Well done. Hee, I knew your Highness was good to me. This trip will surely bring me military merit. Wu Haoiwei's eyes narrowed into slits as he smiled. Then, he seemed to recall something. By the way, Imperial son, my father took me to the Qianjue imperial dynasty a few times back then. The roast whole lamb there is incredibly delicious. Qianjue. You're going there to handle official business, not to eat. But he glanced at Jiang Lingshan, who was drinking tea nearby, then at Wu Haoiwei, whose head was full of roast lamb, and sighed inwardly. Great, two absolute foodies. Just as he sighed to himself, a roar came from outside the palace. You brat, get out here right now. Such an angry voice made Qianjue shrink his neck. Damn, Father Emperor wouldn't be so petty, would he? I only took a tiny bit of stuff, and he's already angry. Jiang Lingshan and Wu Haoiwei inside the palace were also startled by this voice, and they looked towards the palace gate simultaneously. At this moment, Qianjue and Empress Yue Shunyi stepped in side by side, with two people following behind them. Qianjue's face was livid, his eyes like torches, glaring fiercely at Qianjue, as if he wanted to breathe fire. Seeing this, Qianjue hurriedly stood up, feigning ignorance. Father Emperor, what is wrong? Who has provoked you? Jiang Lingshan also stood up and nodded slightly towards Qianjue and Empress Yue Shunyi. Even though Qianjue was angry, when facing Jiang Lingshan, he restrained some of his fury and waved his hand at her, signaling her to forego the formalities. But when his gaze fell back onto Qianjue, his anger levels soared straight up. Qianjue. This cold call made Qianjue immediately realize something was wrong. He took a step and hid directly behind Jiang Lingshan, then poked his head out, revealing a silly smile. Father Emperor, what did this son do wrong? Why are you so angry? Qianjue glared, his chest heaving with heavy breaths. You still have a nerve to ask? I only agreed to let you go to the treasury to take some defensive magical artifacts. And you? Not only did you ransack my spirit stones, but you also pocketed half of the spirit stones from the heavenly treasure pavilion. That Qianjue cried and complained to me all morning. Isn't that what you said yourself, Father Emperor? Qianjue straightened his posture from behind Jiang Lingshan. You said that as long as this son went to the Qianjue imperial dynasty, you would grant any condition I proposed. Moreover, you personally gave me a written decree. Yet now you come here to hold me accountable. Qianjue was stunned upon hearing this. Only now did he realize that he had been schemed against by this son, who looked so harmless. Not just him, even Empress Yue Shunyi beside him showed an expression of disbelief. Because in their hearts, even though they knew that the obedient, sensible, and gentle son of the past was just an act, they never expected that he would use this opportunity to scheme for the spirit stones in his father emperor's treasury. For some reason, Empress Yue Xinyi was not angry at this moment. Instead, she found her son quite interesting. Compared to the son who tried so hard to disguise himself in the past, she preferred him now because this made her feel it was real, the atmosphere a family should have. She just watched the father-son dispute silently, and even though there were outsiders present, she had no intention of intervening. As for Wu Howiwei, seeing the imperial son dare to challenge the imperial lord, although he was a bit surprised, he felt in his heart that this was the imperial son's true nature. Thus, he quietly hid to the side, pretending to see and hear nothing. His manner seemed to say, "Argue amongst yourselves, just pretend I don't exist." As for Di Qingdian, thinking about how he had been schemed against by his son, he suppressed his anger, trying his best to act like a benevolent father. "Jewer, I did agree to the conditions you proposed, but you can't just clean out all of your father's private savings." As he spoke, his gaze fell upon the spatial ring on Di Qianjue's finger. "Look, you took a half-emperor realm spatial ring without permission, and I didn't say anything. Even when you took a divine artifact for this fat guy, I didn't utter a word. So, why don't you return those spirit stones to your father first?" Wu Howiwei, on the side, saw the imperial lord mention him and thought to himself, "Who did I offend? How'd I get hit just by lying here?" He couldn't help but look at Di Qianjue, his expression looking extremely aggrieved. Di Qianjue saw that his father emperor had changed tactics and knew that since he wouldn't eat the hard approach, he was planning to appeal to reason and emotion. He smiled at Di Qingdian and then spat out two words, not returning them. "Di Qianjue." Di Qingdian anger could no longer be suppressed, and a monstrous aura swept towards him. Lingshan, save me." Di Qianjue instinctively wanted to hide behind Jiang Lingshan, but unexpectedly, Jiang Lingshan sidestepped, wrapped her arms around the bowing Di Qianjue, and pressed his face tightly against her chest. At the same time, she erupted with a powerful pressure, not forgetting to comfort him. "Don't be afraid. Your father emperor won't do anything to you." This sudden scene caused everyone to drop their jaws. Even the furious Di Qingdian was stunned, and the aura on his body had retracted at some unknown point. He thought to himself, "This brat, it's only been a few days? Has he already won over this girl?" As for Empress Yue Xinyi, she was stunned at first, and then a look of joy appeared on her face. "As expected of my son." As for Wu Howiwei, his eyes, which were squeezed into slits by his fat, widened with great effort, and his mouth hung open in an O shape. Damn, when did the imperial son get so intimate with Miss Jiang? At this moment, Di Qianjue was held against Jiang Lingshan's chest, the elastic sensation making him forget everything. Waves of fragrance rushed into his nose, going straight to his head. He rubbed against her. A stream of hot blood sprayed from his nostrils, while his face wore a lecherous expression. "My goodness, this girl is really big, generous." Jiang Lingshan also felt Di Qianjue movements, but she did not panic like an ordinary girl, nor did her cheeks flush red. Instead, she said calmly, "All right, your father emperor has withdrawn his pressure." Di Qianjue reluctantly lifted his head from her embrace and smiled awkwardly. Thank you." Ding. Detected that the host's partner has domineeringly protected her husband and confronted the host's father emperor head-on, rewarding 500 soft rice points. Current soft rice points, 5650. Damn, this wave is not a loss. Not only did I take advantage... No, that's not it. Not only did I close the distance with Jiang Lingshan, but I also earned 500 soft rice points. Di Qianjue was very happy inside, and he couldn't help but reveal a lascivious look. Di Qingdian, opposite him, saw this and gave a feigned cough. Ahem. He glanced intentionally or unintentionally at Jiang Lingshan. Then his gaze fell on Di Qianjue. "Zhou, you have changed. You used to be so simple, kind, humble, and polite. But now, you actually scheme for your father's private funds. Qianjue naturally heard the subtext. This old coot is actually still thinking about those crystals? He smiled craftily. Once something is in my hands, how can there be a reason to return it? Qianjue straightened his collar. Father Emperor, isn't this what you taught me, to be myself? So now I'm not pretending anymore. I'm showing my cards. This is my true nature. Qianjian's mouth twitched, but just as he wanted to say something more, Empress Yue, Xianxia, finally spoke. All right, Zhuer hasn't received anything from you all these years, and he only uses ordinary spirit stones for cultivation. Those crystals of yours, just consider it compensation for him. But Qianjian was still unwilling, but when he saw Empress Yue Xianxia gaze, he consciously shut his mouth. Then, at her signal, Qianjian glared fiercely at Qianjue, then resumed his usual majesty. He cleared his throat, ahem. Subsequently, he looked at the two people behind him. Qianjue, these two are the guards I have arranged for you. He first pointed to a woman among the two. The woman was about 27 or 28 years old, tall and heroic. She was wearing light, silver-white armor, with intricate formation patterns carved on the armor plates, emitting a faint luster in the sunlight. Her long hair was tied into a high ponytail, revealing a sharp-featured face. Her features were not breathtakingly beautiful, but her temperament won out, cold, capable, and intimidating without anger. Her eyes were dark brown, and her gaze was as sharp as a knife, as if she could see through all falsehoods. A slender sword hung at her waist, with the character Shuang carved on the scabbard. This is Qianjue, possessing the cultivation of the 7th layer of the Supreme Heavenly Venerable. Qianjian introduced. She is skilled in speed and assassination. Her movement techniques are extremely fast, and she once infiltrated the monster race's 10,000 monster city alone, assassinated 9th layer Supreme Heavenly Venerable Monster Elder, and retreated unscathed. Qianjue bowed slightly. Greetings, 9th Prince. Her voice was cold like the winter wind. Qianjue nodded in return, secretly nodding in his heart. 7th layer of the Supreme Heavenly Venerable, placed in the Qianjue Imperial Dynasty. As long as their old antiques don't come out, he can basically walk sideways. Immediately, Qianjian pointed to the middle-aged man. The man was about 40, with a build as sturdy as an iron tower, broad shoulders and narrow waist, and arms as thick as tree trunks. He was wearing heavy black armor, and the armor plates were covered with knife marks and arrow holes, obviously having experienced countless life and death battles. His face was square and rigid, with high cheekbones and a scar running horizontally across his chin, extending from his left ear to his jaw, which was shocking. His eyes were dark gray. His gaze was as calm as an abyss, but occasionally a trace of imperceptible fatigue would flash through. He carried a 1-foot-wide heavy black sword on his back, the hilt wrapped with dark red cloth strips, which had already been soaked with sweat, turning black. This is Tai Yuan, 9th layer of the Supreme Heavenly Venerable. Qianjian tone carried a trace of respect. He is my old subordinate, having fought for hundreds of years, and has hidden injuries on his body. This time I let him accompany you, first to protect you, and second to see if he can find an opportunity to restore his former peak. Tai Yuan the Venerable clasped his fists in salute, his voice as low as muffled thunder. Greetings, 9th Prince. Qianjue returned the salute, his gaze lingering on him for a moment. 9th layer of the Supreme Heavenly Venerable, 2 layers higher than Qianjue. According to Father Emperor's words, this is not his peak. Then didn't he reach the Emperor realm before? Thinking of this, Qianjue gasped. A strong person of this level is an overlord anywhere. It's a pity he is injured, otherwise. Qianjue said with some regret, Senior Tai Yuan, your injury. It doesn't matter, Tai Yuan's voice was calm. I have been recuperating for hundreds of years. It is almost healed. Even if it does not affect fighting. Qianjue nodded and didn't ask more. And Qianjian looked at his son, his eyes full of disgust at this moment. But when he thought that the promise he made to him had not yet been fulfilled, he said coldly, Di Qianjue, I promised you before that I would give you an emperor-level divine ability. I will now pass the Taishu finger to you. He raised his right hand, his index and middle fingers pressed together, and a wisp of golden light condensed at his fingertips. Buzz! The light was as thin as a hair, yet it exuded a pressure that made people palpitate. Di Qianjue focused his mind and probed his divine sense into that wisp of light. Boom! Countless information flooded into his mind. Taishu finger, emperor-level divine ability, the secret technique of the Taishu Divine Dynasty. Condensing the energy in the body at the fingertips, a finger flicked out can pierce through the void, destroy all laws. Cultivated to great completion, can kill across time and space, ignoring all defenses. Indeed, Qianjue mind. Images emerged. Di Qingdian stood in the starry sky, flicked a finger, and the stars in front exploded, turning into dust all over the sky. His pupils shrank slightly. This finger can destroy the world. Remember, Di Qingdian retracted his finger. Di Qianjue remembered. Practice well. Di Qingdian patted his shoulder with a threatening tone. Now, I have given you what I promised, and even... At this point, he paused. His eyes couldn't help but glance at Empress Yue Shenyi, even though he hadn't finished speaking. Everyone knew what he wanted to say. Then he cast his gaze on Di Qianjue again. If you don't do well this time, wait and see how I deal with you when you come back. Di Qianjue's mouth couldn't help but lift, thinking to himself, you old coot, I have a system now. Maybe I will have stepped into the Emperor realm when I come back. What can you do to me? Di Qingdian finished the business and stepped aside. Empress Yue Shenyi stepped forward. She was wearing a moon-white phoenix robe today, wearing a phoenix crown, elegant and luxurious, the mother of the world. But her eyes were slightly red, and there was a faint moisture in her eyes. Jue, she called softly. Di Qianjue's heart softened. Mother Empress. Empress Yue Shenyi reached out and gently stroked his cheek. Her hands were warm, and her fingertips carried a faint fragrance. From childhood to adulthood, you have never left your mother Empress's side. Her voice was a little choked. This time going to the Qianjue imperial dynasty. I don't know how long it will take to come back. Her tears finally couldn't be held back, sliding down her cheeks. Mother Empress. Di Qianjue felt a sense of sourness in his heart. He lived 2 lives. In his previous life, he had no mother. This life is the first time he felt maternal love. You must take good care of yourself. Empress Yue Shenyi wiped her tears, trying to squeeze out a smile. Wear more clothes when it's cold. Don't catch a cold. Eat on time. Don't go hungry. Don't work too hard in cultivation. It's not good to damage your foundation. Empress Yue Shenyi still thought he was in the Divine Sea realm, and did not know that he had already stepped into the God King realm and possessed the ability to resist cold and abstain from eating. Feeling his mother's concern, Di Qianjue nodded. I will remember, mother. Also, Empress Yue Shenyi said, holding his hand earnestly, Miss Jiang is a good girl. You must treat her well. You are not allowed to bully her or let her suffer any grievances. Di Qianjue glanced at Jiang Lingshan beside him and couldn't help but recall his actions from just a moment ago. His old face turned red as he thought, she is someone who can trigger the soft rice value. How could I bully her? I don't even have enough time to love her. Meanwhile, Jiang Lingshan was tilting her head, watching them with a hint of curiosity in her amber eyes. To avoid worrying his mother, Di Qianjue replied, I understand, mother. Empress Yue Shenyi wiped her tears again, took a step back, and looked at Jiang Lingshan. Miss Jiang, I will entrust Jue to you. Jiang Lingshan blinked and said earnestly, I will protect him. Empress Yue Shenyi smiled, a hint of relief in her expression. Di Qingdian walked over, put his arm around Empress Yue Shenyi's shoulders, and patted her gently. All right, the children are about to set off. Don't make them worry. Empress Yue Shenyi nodded, leaned on Di Qingdian's shoulder, and said no more. Outside Qianjue Palace, everyone prepared to set off. Di Qianjue walked over to the 9 Nether Kirin King. The 9 Nether Kirin King was squatting on the open ground, watching him with deep blue pupils, a hint of anticipation in its gaze. Finally, it didn't have to be cooped up in this wretched palace. Qianjue patted its massive head and vaulted onto the back of the 9 Nether Qian king. Then, he reached out his hand, intending to pull Jiang Lingshan up. Jiang Lingshan, standing on the ground, naturally understood his intention. She tilted her head, inspecting the 9 Nether Qian king with a hint of disdain in her eyes. "It is too ugly," Jiang Lingshan said seriously. The body of the 9 Nether Qian king shuddered violently. Qianjue, then how do you plan to go? Jiang Lingshan did not speak. She raised her right hand, fingers spread, palm facing upward. Then, she blew a gentle breath. The breath drifted from her lips, transforming into a white beam of light that shot straight into the clouds. The light exploded in the sky, turning into countless specks of light like stars across the heavens. Then, a clear, resonant phoenix cry came down from the 9 heavens. Chirp! The sound was like celestial music, piercing through the clouds, the atmosphere, and the eardrums of everyone present, striking directly at their souls. Qianjue looked up, his pupils constricting sharply. In the sky, a gigantic phoenix was swooping down. Its body was the same size as the 9 Nether Qian king, covered in 7 colored feathers, with every feather burning with a faint flame. That flame was not red, but golden, the undying golden flame. It held its head high, its crest feathers like a burning crown, its eyes golden, reflecting the entire world within its pupils. 9 pairs of wings, each pair a different color: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, gold, and silver. 9 colors, 9 pairs of wings. When spread, they blotted out the sky, shrouding the entire Qianjue palace in shadow. Its tail feathers trailed behind it, over 10 zhang long, with the tip of every feather burning with golden flames, leaving 9 golden trails in the sky. Its aura, like the 9 Nether Qian kings, was surprisingly also at the half-emperor realm. But that pressure seemed even stronger, purer, and more suffocating than the 9 Nether Qian kings. This beast was the 9-winged phoenix, a legendary divine beast, the emperor of the phoenix race. Qianjue was stunned. Wu Haoiwei mouth hung open, unable to close. Qianjue mouth opened slightly, but quickly closed again. Her composure was better than the young people's. Tai Yuan's brows furrowed slightly, a flash of amazement in his eyes. Only Di Qingtian and Empress Yue, Shunyi smiled and looked at each other, their eyes filled with the implication of as expected. The 9-winged phoenix descended slowly, landing in front of Jiang Lingshan. It lowered its head and gently rubbed its beak against Jiang Lingshan's palm. The action was like a cat acting coquettishly. Jiang Lingshan reached out to stroke its crest feathers, then turned to look at Qianjue. "It is called xianxia. It looks better than yours." A flash of anger flickered in the pupils of the 9 Nether Qian king, but it dared not act out. Because it couldn't win, let alone this woman in white. It couldn't even beat this phoenix. Qianjue looked at the 9-winged phoenix, then at the 9 Nether Qian king beneath him, and the corner of his mouth twitched. "Miss Jiang, this phoenix of yours is also at the half-emperor realm?" Jiang Lingshan nodded. "I found xianxia when I was a child. Back then, it was still an egg." Qianjue found an egg and hatched a half-emperor realm 9-winged phoenix? The disciple of the monarch, Shao, truly does not play by the rules. "Then why didn't you let it out sooner?" Qianjue asked. "Last time in the blazing demon forest, if you had ridden it there, the 9 Nether Qian king probably would have knelt directly. Xiaojio was sleeping then. It only just woke up last night." Regarding Jiang Lingshan's response, Qianjue surmised that the 9-winged phoenix must have been breaking through at that time. After all, divine beasts all use sleep to improve their strength. At this moment, Wu Haoiwei came back to his senses from a shock. He rubbed his hands and chuckled. "Young Emperor, Miss Jiang, you both have mounts, so I cannot fall behind." He took a deep breath, puffed out his cheeks, and let out a low sound. Demi. The sound was not loud, but it carried a peculiar rhythm, as if summoning something. A moment later, a roar came from the sky. Roar! A pitch-black lion descended from the sky, its forehooves treading on deep blue nether fire, its mane standing up like steel needles, and its eyes burning with deep green flames. Its body was 3 times larger than an ordinary lion, majestic and imposing, with an intimidating aura. Underworld Flame Lion. Divine Beast, Heavenly Venerate Realm. It landed in front of Wu Haoyiwei, lowered its head, and rubbed its head against Wu Haoyiwei's belly, because Wu Haoyiwei was too fat and it couldn't reach his face. Wu Haoyiwei reached out to pat its head, smiling like a child. "This is to me. My father caught it for me." Qianjue looked at the majestic underworld flame lion, then glanced at Wu Haoyiwei's round figure, and a thought arose in his mind. This lion is much more handsome than its master. At this moment, Qianjue and Tai Yuan, who were standing to the side, exchanged a glance. "Your Highness," Qianjue began, "traveling to the Qianjue imperial dynasty with such fanfare is too conspicuous." After all, at this point, Qianjue turned her head slightly, her peripheral vision glancing in the direction of Qianjue. The implication of her words was that the imperial lord had arranged for his highness to go because his cultivation was weak, which would allow the noble clans and the imperial dynasty to lower their guard. However, if they were to bring out mounts at the half-emperor and heavenly venerate realm levels, they would inevitably attract the attention of Emperor Qianjue. Regarding Qianjue's words, Qianjue said nothing, but Qianjue looked at her with a cold sneer. This prince is not a fool. He withdrew his gaze and looked toward the void. The distance between this divine dynasty and Qianjue is at least tens of millions of li. Could it be that? His expression became extremely gloomy as he stared back at Qianjue. "Do you want this prince to walk there? Or take the jade carriage and waste several days on the road?" Upon hearing this, Qianjue turned pale. She had not expected that as an expert by the imperial lord's side, simply offering a suggestion would result in this 9th imperial son, with his mediocre aptitude, refusing to give her any face at all. At this moment, she did not know how to respond, thinking that the imperial lord would surely help her out of this predicament. But after waiting for a breath of time, not a single sound was heard. Sensing that things were amiss, Qianjue knelt directly on the ground. "Your Highness, please forgive me. It was this subordinate who failed to consider things thoroughly." Qianjue gave a light snort and then spoke indifferently. "Do not think that just because you're a veteran by Father Emperor's side, you can make decisions for this prince. Now that Father Emperor is right here, do you believe it? If I were to execute you, he wouldn't say a single word." Kneeling on the ground, Qianjue could not help but sink lower toward the floor. She did not doubt Qianjue's words in the slightest. Because from a moment the imperial lord failed to help her earlier, she knew that from now on, her master would be this 9th imperial son with mediocre aptitude. Seeing her remain silent, Qianjue knew he had achieved the desired effect. "You must remember, since Father Emperor has let you follow me, my words are orders. Do well, and there will be rewards, but if you act in defiance, do not blame this prince for being impolite." This subordinate obeys. Qianjue's voice trembled slightly, but she did not stand up, simply because Qianjue had not yet permitted her to rise. Meanwhile, Qianjue, sitting cross-legged on the back of the 9 Nether Kirin king, glanced at Qianjue, who had her head buried toward the ground, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. "Get up." "Understood." Qianjue slowly stood up from the ground. At this scene, not to mention Tai Yuan beside her, even Qianjue and his wife showed expressions of surprise. Their youngest son had spent the past dozen years pretending to be an obedient child, and in recent days had unleashed his true nature, even scheming against his own father. And now, he was even demonstrating the art of managing people. Although there was an element of him relying on his parents' status, it had to be said that he used it perfectly. The reason Qianjue had not intervened was exactly as Qianjue had stated, since they were assigned to follow his son, everything must be done in obedience to him. If they still thought of themselves as his people and dared to act arrogant due to their seniority, then never mind completing the mission. Even his son's safety would become a problem. All right, let's set off. Qianjue turned his head to look at Qianjue and Tai Yuan. Decide for yourselves whether you will travel through the air or ride your beasts. After all, you are both heavenly venerate experts, and crossing the starry sky won't consume much energy. Qianjue and Tai Yuan did not dare to be special now. Both of them raised their hands and waved simultaneously. Immediately, a massive azure luan and a xianxia, which was entirely crimson, shaped like a fierce tiger, with wings on its back and exposed fangs, appeared. Their auras were also at the heavenly venerate realm, and the qianxia had actually reached the peak, needing only one opportunity to step into the half-emperor level. The two mounts landed on the left and right, behind heavenly venerate Qianjue and heavenly venerate Tai Yuan. For a moment, 5 massive mounts, exuding terrifying auras, circled in the sky above Qianjue Palace. Qianjue looked around and nodded with satisfaction. This lineup was sufficient for going to the Qianjue imperial dynasty. He sat firmly on its back. Jiang Lingshan lightly leaped onto the back of the 9-winged phoenix. Her white clothes were like snow, her long hair flying, and standing on the phoenix's back, she looked like a painting. Wu Howiwei climbed onto the back of the underworld flame lion. Truth be told, paired with his 200-gene physique, it actually felt somewhat majestic. Heavenly venerate Qianjue and heavenly venerate Tai Yuan each mounted their beasts, taking positions on the left and right to guard the sides of the group. Tai Yuan raised one hand and waved it gently in the air, and suddenly, a rift was seen opening in the void. Qianjue turned around and looked at Qingtian and Empress Yue Shenyi. Qingtian stood with his hands behind his back, his face majestic. Although there was a trace of disdain in his eyes, there was more reluctance to part. Empress Yue Shenyi's eyes were red again, but she held back and did not let her tears fall. Father Emperor, Mother Empress, Qianjue cupped his hands in a salute. Your son is leaving. Qingtian nodded. Go. Remember, make your own decisions regarding the Qianjue imperial dynasty. This emperor believes in you. Empress Yue Shenyi said softly, take care of yourself, and take care of Miss Jiang. Your son understands. Qianjue took a deep breath and turned around. Depart. As his command was issued, the 5 of them steered their mounts and flew into the spatial passage opened by Tai Yuan. Entering the starry sky, Qianjue sat cross-legged on the back of the 9 Nether Kirin King. A transparent defensive light ring enveloped him, and a faint smile hung on the corners of his mouth. Jiang Lingshan stood on the back of the 9-winged phoenix, looking around at the scenery in the starry sky. As for Wu Howiwei, he lay on the back of the underworld flame lion, his belly pressing against the lion's spine, looking completely at ease. As for heavenly venerate Qianjue and heavenly venerate Tai Yuan, they stayed on the left and right, their gazes scanning the surroundings vigilantly. 5 streams of light shuttled through the starry sky, and as their speed increased, they formed specks of light before disappearing from view. The imperial palace of the Qianjue imperial dynasty was not as magnificent as that of the Taisha Divine Dynasty, but it possessed a greater sense of weight and history. The entire imperial palace was built on Mount Longsho, the highest point in Qianjue City. It followed the mountain's contours, rising in layers from the foot to the summit. The palace walls were constructed from massive bluish-gray stones, 30 meters high and 9 meters thick. Having weathered tens of thousands of years of wind and rain, the surfaces were covered in mottled marks, imprints left by time and witnesses to the rise and fall of the Qianjue imperial dynasty over the millennia. The palace gate was a massive stone arch, 30 meters high and 15 meters wide. Carved upon the lintel were 4 large characters, Qianjue Universe. The calligraphy was vigorous and powerful, said to be personally written by the founding emperor of the Qianjue imperial dynasty. Every stroke contained the pressure of an Emperor realm powerhouse. A single glance from an ordinary person would leave them dizzy and disoriented. Passing through the palace gate, one encountered a long flight of stone steps. The steps were 9 meters wide, totaling 999 levels, each paved with a single block of bluestone. Stone-carved warriors stood on either side, holding long halberds with majestic expressions, looking as if they were alive. These stone carvings were not mere decorations, but nodes of the Qianjue imperial dynasty's national protection formation. Once activated, they would transform into true warriors to defend the imperial palace. At the end of the stone steps stood Taiwa Hall. This hall was the main hall of the Qianjue imperial dynasty. The entire structure was built from lapis lazuli, and the roof was covered with black glazed tiles that glinted with a cold light under the sun. Inside the hall, candle flames burned brightly. Emperor Qianjue sat regally upon a dragon throne. His exact age was unknown, but he appeared to be in his early 40s. His face was square and rugged, with high cheekbones and a neatly trimmed short beard on his chin. His skin was bronze-colored, a mark left by years of constant warfare. Although he rarely fought in person now, that bronze hue seemed etched into his bones, never to fade. He wore a black dragon robe embroidered with golden, 5-clawed dragons, their heads facing upward as if about to burst from the fabric. A white jade belt was fastened at his waist, and he wore a pink Tianguan crown. 12 strings of beads hung before him, swaying gently with his breath and blurring his features. But his eyes were clearly visible through those beads. They were deep eyes with dark brown pupils, like a 1,000-year-old pool whose bottom could not be seen. In that gaze, there was majesty, shrewdness, calculation, and a trace of fatigue. Tens of thousands of years on the throne, tens of thousands of years of balancing power, tens of thousands of years of treading on thin ice. He was tired, but he could not fall, because he was Emperor Qianjue, the ruler of billions of living beings. At this moment, his gaze fell upon the young man in the hall. This young man was Yi Wuchun, who had come from the Jinan Yi family. He stood in the center of the hall, wearing a moon-white brocade robe with gold-threaded emerald bamboo and a silver silk python belt, holding a folding fan. His eyes were slightly narrowed, and his lips held the reserved yet arrogant smile characteristic of a scion of a great clan. Behind him, there was no one. But Emperor Qianjue knew this young man had not come alone. Powerhouses of the Yi family were lurking outside the imperial palace, ready to respond at a moment's notice. Yi family boy, Emperor Qianjue spoke, his voice deep and resonant like an ancient mountain bell. What business has your father sent you here for? Yi Wuchun snapped his fan shut, tapped it lightly against his palm, and bowed. This junior has come by my father's order to pay respects to Emperor Qianjue. He straightened up, his triangular eyes meeting Emperor Qianjue's gaze in the air. My father asked me to inform Emperor Qianjue. The Yi family is ready to act. Emperor Qianjue's brow twitched slightly. Act. His voice was calm, devoid of any discernible emotion. Against whom? The corners of Yi Wuchun's mouth curled up as he spat out 2 words, the Divine Dynasty. As soon as those words were spoken, the air in Taiwu Hall seemed to freeze. The ministers standing on either side looked at each other. Some showed shock, some lowered their heads in silence, and some quietly took half a step back. The candle flames in the hall moved without wind, flickering and casting distorted shadows on the walls. Emperor Qianjue did not speak. He simply looked at Yi Wuchun, his gaze as deep as an abyss. Yi Wuchun felt somewhat uneasy under that gaze, but he did not back down. He straightened his back and continued. The Yi family is willing to join forces with the Qianjue imperial dynasty. Once the matter is settled, he paused, a light of absolute determination flashing in his eyes. The Yi family is willing to share the entire human world with Emperor Qianjue. A deathly silence filled Taiwa Hall. Emperor Qianjue shifted his gaze from Yi Wuchun to the crossbeams of the hall's ceiling. His fingers tapped lightly on the armrest of the dragon throne, producing a rhythmic thud sound. That sound was exceptionally clear in the silent hall. Once, twice, and again. Ye Yuchen vaitet patiently. He knew Emperor Qianjue needed time to think. After tens of thousands of years on the throne and tens of thousands of years of balancing powers, this old man had grown accustomed to acting only after a plan was set. He would not easily agree to anything, nor would he easily refuse. After a long time, Emperor Qianjue spoke. Yi family boy, his voice remained calm, but there was an indefinable quality to his tone. Did your father ever tell you how I obtained this throne? Yi Wuchun was slightly taken aback, then nodded. My father mentioned it. Back then, the Yi family ancestor assisted Emperor Qianjue in ascending to the throne. Assisted? The corners of Emperor Qianjue's mouth curled up, but there was no warmth in the smile. It wasn't assistance, it was saving my life. His gaze became distant, as if traveling through time and space back to that day, tens of thousands of years ago. Back then, I fought my elder brother for the throne. We battled for 3 days and 3 nights, both of us suffering heavy losses. My brother had invited a half-emperor realm enshrinement. I nearly died in that battle. He paused. It was your Yi family ancestor who acted at the critical moment. He raised his hand and touched his chest. There was a shocking scar there that pierced through from front to back. Even after tens of thousands of years, and even though he was now a great emperor powerhouse, that scar had not disappeared. Your Yi family ancestor saved my life and saved my throne. He lowered his hand, his gaze falling back onto Yi Wuchun. Therefore, I owe this debt of gratitude to your Yi family. The corners of Yi Wuchun's mouth turned up, a flash of smugness appearing in his eyes. But he did not speak, because Emperor Qianjue was not finished. However, Emperor Qianjue's voice suddenly turned low. Owing a debt is one thing, but I will not use the lives of the billions of beings in the Qianjue imperial dynasty to repay it. Yi Wuchun's smile stiffened for a moment. Emperor Qianjue, listen to me. Emperor Qianjue raised a hand to interrupt him. I have ruled the Qianjue imperial dynasty for tens of thousands of years. I understand the strength of the Divine Dynasty far better than your Yi family does. He stood up, walked to the center of the hall with his hands behind his back, and looked up at the crossbeams. Di Qingdian is one of the 3 supreme powerhouses of the human race. Rumor has it he reached the peak of the great emperor realm long ago, and might even have stepped into that legendary realm. By his side are the Heavenly Dragon Guard, the Xuanian Guard, and also Heavenly King Wuji. Not a single one of them is easy to deal with. He turned around and looked at Yi Wuchun. What makes your Yi family think you can fight him? Yi Wuchun took a deep breath, suppressing the displeasure in his heart, and tried hard to maintain a calm expression on his face. Emperor Qianjue, there is no need for you to worry about this. Since the Yi family dares to make a move, we naturally have confidence. Confidence? Emperor Qianjue raised an eyebrow. What kind of confidence? Forgive this young master for not being able to tell you yet. Yi Wuchun closed his folding fan and frowned slightly. If we don't make a move now, there won't be another opportunity in the future. After all, the successor of the monarch Xiaoyou has already been taken away by Di Qianjue. If their marriage alliance succeeds, the Divine Dynasty will gain the support of another human supreme expert. By then, other clans and sects will not necessarily be as indecisive as they are now. If they lean toward the Divine Dynasty, even if my Yi family takes action, or even if the 4 imperial dynasties join forces, we might not be able to shake the Divine Dynasty in the slightest. Hearing this, Emperor Qianjue frowned. So, the Yi family wants to act before they successfully complete the marriage alliance? Exactly. Ye Yuchen nodded. Not only that, my father also asked this junior to convey a message to Emperor Qianjue. The Yi family also has people within the other 3 imperial dynasties. Emperor Qianjue's pupils contracted slightly. You mean? Correct. In the imperial courts of the Great Xia, Great Shang, and Great Zhou imperial dynasties, there are people planted by the Yi family. Some are in the military, some are in the court, and some are within the royal families. Yi Wuchun's voice was unhurried, but every word felt like a knife stabbing into Emperor Qianjue's heart. As long as the Qianjue imperial dynasty is willing to cooperate with the Yi family can assist the Qianjue imperial dynasty in devouring those three imperial dynasties, one by one. Emperor Qianjue fell silent. This temptation was too great, but it also carried extreme risk. If he took one wrong step, the Qianjue imperial dynasty would face an abyss of eternal doom. His gaze lingered on Yi Wuchun for a long time, so long that fine beads of sweat began to appear on Yi Wuchun's forehead. Then he smiled. That smile carried a trace of ambition that had not been extinguished for tens of thousands of years. But he could not respond yet. After all, anyone could make empty promises. At the very least, he needed the Yi family to show their stance by helping him suppress the other three imperial dynasties. Yi family boy, I must admit this temptation is great, but it is merely a temptation. After all, I must be responsible for hundreds of millions of living beings, so... At this point, he paused, then walked back to the dragon throne and sat down. He continued in a deep voice, until the other three imperial dynasties have shown their stance, or rather, until they have been suppressed by my Qianjue, I absolutely cannot take action. Otherwise, the first one the Divine Dynasty will deal with is the Qianjue imperial dynasty. Hearing this, Yi Wuchun thought to himself, "Old fox, you really won't commit until you see the results." He looked up at Emperor Qianjue on the dragon throne. "The Yi family naturally understands your concerns. My father said that the people the Yi family has planted in the other three dynasties will fully cooperate with Emperor Qianjue. As for when to act, that depends on you, Emperor Qianjue." Emperor Qianjue looked at him with a complex gaze. "There is no rush for this matter. I need to discuss it with my ministers before making a decision." Yi Wuchun bowed and saluted. "Then this junior will stay in the imperial city and wait for Emperor Qianjue good news." Emperor Qianjue nodded and raised his hand to summon an attendant. "Take young Master Yi to the guest pavilion and settle him in properly." "Yes." The attendant bowed and walked in front of Yi Wuchun. "Young Master Yi, please." Yi Wuchun turned and walked a few steps, then suddenly stopped. He did not turn back, but with his back to Emperor Qianjue, he said, "Emperor Qianjue, my Yi family does not want to lose this opportunity, so please make a decision as soon as possible." After all, as he spoke, he turned his head slightly and glanced at Emperor Qianjue on the dragon throne out of the corner of his eye. "My Yi family was able to help you ascend to the position of emperor back then, and today, we can just as easily replace you with someone else." After saying this, he strode out of Taiwa Hall without looking back. Inside the hall, Emperor Qianjue sat alone on the dragon throne, his face livid. His fingers gripped the armrests tightly, his knuckles turning white. His chest heaved violently, and his breathing was as heavy as an ox. "Scoundrel!" He stood up abruptly and kicked over the imperial desk in front of him. The teacups, jade slips, and writing materials on the desk scattered all over the floor with a clatter, making crisp, shattering sounds. "A mere stripling dares to threaten me?" His voice echoed in Taiwo Hall, shaking dust down from the ceiling. The ministers on both sides knelt on the floor. No one dared to look up, and no one dared to make a sound. Emperor Qianjue panted heavily, pacing back and forth in the hall. The hem of his dragon robe dragged on the floor, making a rustling sound. He paced back and forth a dozen times before finally stopping and speaking to the ministers. "You have all understood this matter. Speak and tell me your thoughts." For a moment, the ministers whispered to each other, but no one dared to step forward and speak. Just then, an old man took a few steps forward. "Your Majesty, this old subject feels that this matter requires further deliberation. After all, it concerns the survival of hundreds of millions of living beings, and furthermore, we are facing the entire Divine Dynasty." "Fine, I will give you time. We will discuss this matter again at the morning court in 3 days." Emperor Qianjue stood in the center of the hall, looking up at the beams of the ceiling, and closed his eyes. After a long while, he opened his eyes. The anger in them had faded, replaced by a deep exhaustion. "All of you withdraw." His voice was hoarse. The ministers felt as if they had been granted amnesty and scrambled out of Taiwa Hall. Inside the hall, Only Emperor Qianjue remained. He walked back to the dragon throne, sat down, leaned against the back of the chair, and closed his eyes. The Yi family. Ye Qinyan. Ye Vude. These names flashed through his mind. Each name felt like a thorn stabbing into his heart. He owed a debt to the Yi family that he could not fail to repay. But what the Yi family wanted was not just the repayment of favor. They wanted his entire Qianjue to become the Yi family's blade, a blade that could oppose the Divine Dynasty. Di Qingtian, he muttered to himself, his voice so low that only he could hear it. Has your cultivation reached that level? No one answered him. In Taiwu Hall, only the candlelight flickered, casting a lonely shadow on the wall. Qianjue Imperial Dynasty, Qianjue City. This city was the capital of the Imperial Dynasty. Although it was not as magnificent as Taisha City, it could still be described as imposing. The city walls stood 50 zhang high and 5 zhang wide, constructed entirely of bluestone, gleaming with a cold light under the sun. Every 100 steps along the wall stood an arrow tower, where the imperial guards of the Qianjue dynasty were stationed, patrolling day and night without rest. At this moment, long queues formed at the city gates, people entering and leaving, the scene clamorous with voices and a constant stream of carriages and horses. Within the queue, 5 individuals were particularly eye-catching. Leading them was a young man dressed in a moon-white brocade robe with a white jade belt around his waist. His long hair was tied up with a purple gold crown, and he had a refined, handsome face with a gentle aura. Beside him was a woman in white, her face covered by a light veil, revealing only a pair of amber eyes that were as clear as water, as if they could see through everything. Behind the woman followed a fatty, truly fat. His round body was wrapped in a wide, golden-threaded brocade robe, his belly stretching the belt out of shape. A simple, honest smile was plastered on his round face, and his eyes, squeezed into slits by his flesh, darted around, curiously observing his surroundings. Behind the fatty were a man and a woman. The man was as sturdy as an iron tower, wearing heavy black armor. The woman wore light, silver-white armor, her figure tall and slender, her long hair tied into a high ponytail. Indeed, this was Di Qianjue and his party. They had torn through the void 1,000 miles away from Qianjue City, stepped out of the void, and arrived at the city gate by flying, queuing up to enter the city according to the rules. It was not that they could not fly in directly. Given Di Qianjue's status, they could have landed directly in the Qianjue Imperial Palace. But Di Qianjue did not want to alert the enemy. He wanted to first see what this Qianjue city was actually like. Imperial son. Wu Haoiwei leaned in and lowered his voice. Why don't we go directly to find Emperor Qianjue? You are an imperial son of the Divine Dynasty. By the rules, he should come out of the city to welcome you personally. Di Qianjue glanced at him, and then, Wu Haoiwei was stunned. Then we move into the Imperial Palace, eat well, drink well, and then be watched by others, with every move under their noses? Wu Haoiwei opened his mouth, then closed it. Di Qianjue smiled slightly. Let's observe the situation first, then make plans. Wu Haoiwei nodded as if he understood, and stopped speaking. Zhang Lingxin stood beside Di Qianjue. Her expression under the veil could not be seen, but those amber eyes were constantly and curiously observing the surroundings. Here, she spoke, her voice clear and light, is livelier than Taisha City. Di Qianjue nodded. Taishu City is the capital of the Divine Dynasty. There are many rules, and ordinary people cannot enter. This is the capital of an imperial dynasty. There are more people coming and going, and it is more mixed. Oh, Jiang Lingshan nodded, her gaze falling on a small stall selling candied hawthorns, a glimmer of light flashing in her eyes. Di Qianjue followed her gaze and smiled. After we get settled, I'll take you to eat some. Jiang Lingshan's eyes curved into crescents. The 5 of them queued to enter the city. Di Qianjue did not stay in the imperial palace, nor did he even stay in the reception building specially prepared by the royal family for foreign guests. He chose a restaurant with an excellent environment and fine food, Cloud End, immortal abode. This was the best restaurant in Qianjue City, aside from the Royal Reception Building. The building was 5 stories high, with upturned eaves and carved beams and painted rafters. The outer walls were painted with vermilion lacquer, gleaming brilliantly in the sun. In front of the door stood 2 stone lions, each holding a stone ball in its mouth, the carving exquisite and lifelike. Hanging above the lintel was a plaque with golden characters, Cloud End, immortal abode. Qianjue booked the entire 5th floor. The shopkeeper was knowledgeable and experienced. He saw at a glance that this young man was either wealthy or noble, so he hurriedly served him personally, pouring tea and water with great attentiveness. Qianjue casually tossed him a piece of supreme spirit crystal. The shopkeeper's eyes went wide, and he almost knelt down. "Gee, guess this is too much." "Not much." Qianjue waved his hand. "Arrange a table of fine wine and dishes, and send them to the room." "Yes, yes, yes." Arranging it immediately. The shopkeeper held the supreme spirit crystal, his hands trembling, and trotted off to make arrangements. Qianjue sat by the window, pushed it open, and looked at the street below. The prosperity of Qianjue City was fully in view, with a constant stream of carriages and people coming and going. Xianxia sat opposite him, having already removed her veil, and was eating a plate of osmanthus cakes. Wu Haoiwei sat in the corner, holding a roast chicken, his mouth oily as he gnawed on it. Qianjue stood by the door, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, her gaze vigilantly scanning outside the window. Taiyuan stood by the window, hands behind his back, looking at the street below with a deep gaze. "Taiyuan, Qianjue, come to my room for a moment." After saying this, Qianjue walked toward his own room. The two exchanged a glance and followed closely behind. "Tonight, you two go out and scout for information about the Qianjue imperial dynasty." When they arrived in Qianjue room, his voice sounded unhurriedly. "Investigate the situation of the Qianjue imperial dynasty. Who is the most powerful prince? What positions the Yi family members hold in the court? And who is in charge of the imperial dynasty's military?" Taiyuan nodded. "Understood." Additionally, Qianjue paused. "Investigate the relationship between the Qianjue imperial dynasty and the Yi family, and just how deep it goes." Qianjue frowned slightly. "Your Highness, if we both go out, your safety." "I have a 9 Nether Kirin king." Qianjue pointed outside the window. The 9 Nether Kirin king had shrunk its size and was crouching on the roof, its deep blue pupils flickering in the darkness like a ghostly lamp. Since arriving at Cloud End Immortal Abode, Qianjue had released the 9 Nether Kirin king, because this was someone else's territory. He knew well that a powerful expert did not need to show themselves to kill. A single thought was enough to reduce someone to ashes. Therefore, for his own safety, he had the 9 Nether Kirin king guard him at all times. Qianjue glanced at the 9 Nether Kirin king, then thought of Xianxia in the room next door, and the corner of her mouth twitched slightly. This Miss Jiang, 9-winged phoenix, was also a powerful half-emperor divine beast. With 2 half-emperor realm mounts guarding, plus the unfathomable existence that was Xianxia, whether she and Taiyuan were there or not, it really didn't seem to make much difference. Subordinates obey. Qianjue bowed. The night deepened. Wu Haoiwei was full and satisfied, so he went back to his room to sleep. Xianxia also returned to her own room, and as she left, she swiped a plate of osmanthus cakes from Qianjue. Qianjue sat by the window, holding a cup of tea in his hand, watching the night scene outside. The night in Qianjue City was even livelier than in Taisha City. The streets were brightly lit, pedestrians were like weaving fabric, and the sounds of hawking, laughter, and string and bamboo instruments intertwined, forming a symphony of prosperity. Taiyuan and Qianjue changed into night-traveling clothes, preparing to set off. "Your Highness, Qianjue and I will go and return shortly," Taiyuan said. Just as he was about to leave, Qianjue called out to him. "Wait." He set down his teacup, stood up, and walked over to Taiyuan, his gaze lingering on his face for a moment. Tai Yuan, can you tell me what happened with your injury? Tai Yuan was slightly stunned. Qianjue also stopped in her tracks and looked at Tai Yuan. The latter was silent for a moment before slowly speaking. This subordinate was once a member of the Heavenly Dragon Guard by the Imperial Lord's side. The Qianjue pupils constricted slightly. Heavenly Dragon Guard. The most elite guard unit by Di Qingnian's side. Their numbers were few, but every single one was a powerhouse at or above the Half-Emperor realm. There were even rumors that there were peerless experts of the Great Emperor realm within the Heavenly Dragon Guard. Back then, Tai Yuan's voice was low, as if squeezed from his chest. This subordinate was ordered to go outside the Middle Divine realm to scout for information on the alien races. His gaze became distant, as if traversing time and space, returning to that day in that year. Outside the Middle Divine realm, the Nine Nether Abyss is the territory of the ancient remnant races. There are no rules, no order, only slaughter and consumption. He paused. This subordinate followed the Imperial Lord's orders to infiltrate the heartland of the alien races and uncovered quite a bit of information. But while retreating, I was discovered by an alien powerhouse. In that battle, this subordinate fought with all my might and slew that powerhouse who had just entered the Emperor realm, but I was also injured in my soul by his secret technique. He raised his hand and pointed to his temple. The alien race's secret technique specifically targets the soul. It is not ordinary damage, but a kind of corrosion like poison, eroding the soul bit by bit. If not suppressed, the soul will gradually disintegrate, and eventually, the soul will be scattered. Die Qianjue brows furrowed. Did Father Emperor suppress it for you? Tai Yuan nodded. The Imperial Lord personally took action, forcibly sealing that corrosive power deep within this subordinate soul. But this is only suppression, not a cure. His voice was calm, as if talking about someone else's affairs. Over these years, this subordinate's cultivation has been constantly regressing. From the Great Emperor realm, it fell to the Half-Emperor realm, and from the Half-Emperor realm, it fell to the 9th level of the Heavenly Venerate. He looked down at his hands. They were still thick and powerful, but they were trembling slightly. The Imperial Lord said that if a way to cure my soul cannot be found, my cultivation will continue to drop. 8th level of the Heavenly Venerate, 7th level of the Heavenly Venerate, 6th level of the Heavenly Venerate, until I become a useless person. A trace of pity flashed in Qianjue's eyes. She had known Tai Yuan for many years. She knew that this man was once one of the most dazzling existences in the Heavenly Dragon Guard, an Emperor Realm powerhouse who could fight an army alone. Now, he had fallen to the 9th level of the Heavenly Venerate, and it was still continuing to fall. The Imperial Lord arranged a position for this subordinate in the profound Heaven Guard. Tai Yuan raised his head, his gaze calm. This subordinate originally wanted to refuse, but the Imperial Lord said. He paused. The Imperial Lord said that this trip out with you, Your Highness, might be an opportunity, but I know that this must be because His Majesty does not want me to continue sinking further. Di Qianjue was silent for a moment before asking, Can your injury be healed? Tai Yuan gave a bitter smile. There is a way, but the cost is immense. It is equivalent to having no cure. What cost? It requires a peak, Great Emperor Realm powerhouse to expend half of their cultivation to disperse that corrosive power for me, and then mend my soul. Speaking of this, Tai Yuan's smile became even more bitter. It is already difficult to step into the Emperor Realm, and among those who can reach this level, who would be willing to give up half their cultivation to mend my soul? Di Qianjue heard this and thought it made sense. In this world where the strong are respected, a peak Great Emperor is a titan of a region, who would abandon their own cultivation to save someone. Then are there no other ways? Di Qianjue asked somewhat unwillingly. Tai Yuan sighed deeply. There is, but the Imperial Lord has had people searching for me for hundreds of years, yet there has been no result. Di Qianjue did not speak, but quietly watched him, waiting for his follow-up, and then Tai Yuan's voice sounded again. That is a type of emperor-grade pill. It is rumored that someone refined it in the ancient era, but today throughout the entire Qianjue continent, there's almost no one who can refine this pill. Because the required materials are extremely rare, and some have even gone extinct. After Tai Yuan finished speaking, he looked at Qianjue, his gaze carrying a trace of gratitude, but more of it was relief. Therefore, Your Highness, this subordinate no longer forces it. Qianjue looked into his eyes. In those deep gray pupils, there was exhaustion, helplessness, but more than that, calm. It was a kind of calm that comes from having experienced great storms and looking past life and death. And Qianjue seemed to think of something at this moment and suddenly smiled. Tai Yuan, what if I said that I could heal you? Tai Yuan was stunned. Qianjue was also stunned. Your Highness, you, don't be in a rush to ask yet. Qianjue waved his hand. I only said if. He looked into Tai Yuan's eyes, his gaze becoming serious. Tai Yuan, are you loyal to the Imperial Lord and the Divine Dynasty? Tai Yuan did not hesitate and knelt on one knee. This subordinate is loyal to the Imperial Lord and the Divine Dynasty, unwavering, with the heavens and earth as my witness. Qianjue looked at him and was silent for a moment. Then, he reached out and patted Tai Yuan on the shoulder. Remember what you said today. His voice was not heavy, but every word was clear and powerful. As long as you complete the tasks I assign in the future, I guarantee that one day I will let you return to your peak. Tai Yuan raised his head and looked into Qianjue's eyes. In those eyes, there was no youthful frivolity, no arrogance of a superior, only a kind of certainty, as if what he said he would definitely be able to do. Tai Yuan's heart stirred slightly, but he quickly suppressed that emotion. Qianjue, this ninth imperial son with mediocre aptitude who was only at the middle stage of the Divine Sea realm, even with the help of the monarch Xiaoyou disciple, could not possibly produce a pill of that level. Although there were many existences on the continent who could refine emperor-grade pills, there were almost none who could refine a pill to repair a great emperor's soul, simply because the medicinal materials could not be found. Thinking of this, Tai Yuan sighed in his heart. His Highness is trying to win people over, right? Young people always like to talk big. But he did not expose him, only nodded. This subordinate understands. Qianjue saw the skepticism in his eyes, but did not say much more. Some things need time to prove. Go. He turned around and sat back down by the window. Go early and return early. Yes. Tai Yuan and Qianjue turned into two black shadows, leaped out of the window, and disappeared into the night. Qianjue sat by the window, toying with the Hunyuan Nirvana pill he had obtained from the system lottery. The pill was entirely golden, emitting a faint light, and there were fine patterns on the surface of the pill, like the meridians of a human body. He watched it for a moment before putting the pill back into his spatial ring. Tai Yuan, whether you can recover or not depends on whether you are willing to be used by this Highness. Outside the window, the night wind blew, bringing the sounds of string and bamboo instruments from afar. The night of Qianjue City was still bustling, and beneath the prosperity, undercurrents were surging. Qianjue lay on the bed in the top-floor suite of the Cloud End immortal abode, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep no matter what. It wasn't that the bed was uncomfortable. The mattress was layered with 3 levels of velvet, as soft as stepping on clouds. It wasn't that the room wasn't quiet. They had booked the entire top floor, and though Howiway next door was snoring like thunder, that was just white noise. He seemed to have developed an immunity to it. His mind just wouldn't stop. It was filled with the situation of the Qianjue imperial dynasty and how he could muddy these waters. Qianjue rolled over and stared at the canopy above the bed. Forget it. Why not just do whatever makes me happy, he muttered to himself, repeating what he had told himself earlier that day. He rolled over again. He sat up abruptly, his hair disheveled and his sleeping robe hanging loosely on his body. I can't sleep. He sat cross-legged on the bed, took a deep breath, and slowly exhaled. Since he couldn't sleep, he might as well find something to do. He opened the system panel. A faint blue light lit up in the darkness, illuminating his face. Host, Qianjue Cultivation, Divine King Realm, 9th layer, hidden as Divine Sea Realm, mid-stage, technique, myriad Dao convergence art, imperial clan inherited technique, soft rice points, 56-10 draw chances, 1 bound target, Jiang Lingshan, cultivation. Qianjue looked at those 5,610 soft rice points and tapped his fingers against his chin. A 10 draw cost 10,000. He didn't have enough. A single draw cost 1,000. Drawing 5 times would leave him with 610. System, he asked in his mind, is it possible to get good things from a single draw? It is possible, but the probability is extremely low. How low? Spirit grade 80%, profound grade 15%, God grade 4.5%, Emperor grade 0.4%, Epic grade 0.1%. The corner of Qianjue's mouth twitched. 0.1%. Doesn't that mean 1 out of 1,000? He glanced at his soft rice points, 5,610. He couldn't even draw 6 times. Forget it, he sighed. Time to sleep. He lay down. He closed his eyes. His mind was still filled with those messy thoughts. He opened his eyes. He sat up. He opened the system panel. Why not try 2 draws? After hesitating for a moment, he gritted his teeth. Just consider it. Buying a lesson. System, give this prince 2 draws. Ding. Host has consumed 2,000 soft rice points to initiate 2 draws. Current remaining soft rice points, 3610. Drawing. Qianjue leaned against the headboard, arms crossed, with an expression that said, I am ready to receive trash. In his past life, he was always a non-chief when drawing cards. He always hit the pity for a 10 draw, and the pity was always the worst. Single draws were even more disastrous. He rarely even saw purple. This time, he just couldn't sleep and wanted to find something to do. He didn't hold any hope at all. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Epic Grade Hongmeng Bead. Die Qianjue Expression Phrase. What? He thought he had misheard. Epic Grade? He rubbed his eyes and looked back at the system panel. Epic Grade Hongmeng Bead Current Level. Chaos Supreme Treasure. Upgradable. Treasure functions conceal heavenly secrets, can evade heavenly Dao sensing and causal deduction, often called the escaped one. Contains great Dao. Holds the profound meanings and laws of the 3,000 great Daos, available for the holder to comprehend and cultivate. Drift between 3 realms. Not restricted by conventional space. Drifts outside the 3 realms and 6 paths, having evaded the great calamity of creation. Evolve universe. It can evolve new universes, also known as the creation bead. This item is a Hongmeng supreme treasure conceived before the opening of heaven and earth, containing Hongmeng purple qi. It can purify all things, break all techniques, and suppress luck. The wearer's cultivation speed increases by 500%. The difficulty of cultivating all techniques decreases by 80%, and they are immune to all curses, toxins, and mental attacks. Qianjue mouth hung open, unable to close. An epic grade chaos supreme treasure, and it can be upgraded? His hands began to tremble, but the draws weren't over yet. However, at this moment, he didn't care anymore, because the first one was already epic. It didn't matter what the second one was. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining Epic Grade 21 Wuji Holy Method. Qianjue brain completely crashed. Another epic? 2 draws, 2 epics. He kept his mouth open, eyes wide, standing there as if frozen, motionless. And the system fell silent too. It wasn't the kind of silence that meant, I can't be bothered with you, but the kind that meant, I don't know what to say. After a long while, ding! The system has detected an abnormal situation. The host's luck value exceeds the system's evaluation range. Re-evaluating. Evaluating. Evaluation failed. The system is unable to evaluate the host's current luck value. Die Qianjue. Even the system couldn't calculate it. The corners of his mouth began to lift and lift and lift until they finally stretched to his ears. System. His voice was trembling. What did you say the probability of an epic grade item was again? 0.1%. 2 draws, 0.1%. What is the probability of that? 1 in 10,000. 1 in 10,000. Qianjue repeated, then laughed. Ha ha. 1 in 10,000. This prince hit a 1 in 10,000 chance. He hugged his quilt and rolled back and forth on the bed, his laughter echoing in the room. Fortunately, the room was soundproof, or else Qianjue next door would have been woken up. System, shouldn't you say something? Host, it is recommended that you remain calm. Excessive excitement may lead to arrhythmia. Arrhythmia? This prince is happy right now. Happy, do you understand? Understood. Then congratulate me. Congratulations to the host. Not sincere. Do it again. Congratulations to the host for obtaining an epic grade treasure. The host's luck is heaven-defying. The system is deeply impressed. That's more like it. Qianjue sat up from the bed, took a deep breath, and tried hard to calm himself down. But he still couldn't suppress the corners of his mouth. 1 in 10,000. 2 draws. 2 epics. What kind of concept was this? This meant his luck today was off the charts, the kind that even the system couldn't calculate. System, introduce the Huanyuan Wuji Holy Method. Huanyuan Wuji Holy Method, an epic grade technique, one of the top cultivation methods in heaven and earth. To cultivate this technique, one must use the Hongmeng bead as a conduit to integrate Hongmeng purple qi into the body, reshaping the meridians, dantian, and sea of consciousness. Cultivate to the minor accomplishment stage, and you can master the power of Huanyuan, becoming invincible within the same realm. Cultivate to the great accomplishment stage, and you can open up a small world within your body, becoming a world unto yourself. Cultivate to perfection, and you can transform into Huanyuan, reopen the universe, and become the master of the universe. Qianjue's eyes grew brighter the more he listened. Invincible within the same realm, becoming a world unto oneself, reopening the universe, becoming the master of the universe. How is this just a technique? This is the key to becoming the co-ruler of all living beings. What about the cultivation method? The cultivation method has been stored in the host's sea of consciousness. Please consult it yourself. Qianjue closed his eyes, and dense text and patterns emerged in his sea of consciousness. The Huanyuan Wuji Holy Method, consisting of 9 layers. Qianjue opened his eyes and took a deep breath. This technique was practically tailor-made for him. He had the Hongmeng bead, the system, and soft rice points. His cultivation speed was already faster than others. Combined with this Huanyuan Wuji Holy Method, what would happen then? But he didn't rush to cultivate. He was in Qianjue City now. It wasn't the time to cultivate. He would wait until he found a safe place to go into seclusion and cultivate. Ding! With this system here, the host does not need to go into seclusion. As long as you have enough soft rice points, I can give you a direct boost. You can do that.